Well, we're getting pretty close to the end of our session series for this year. There's only one more session to go. We still have some very important subjects to look at. And so as we wrap it all up, there's some very straight talking that we need to do. Now, from the introduction, you got some idea at least of what these themes are going to be in this session. There's the recurring one of drugs, alcohol, and your freedoms, because you are pushing ahead to move away from control by others to be the manager of yourself. But you're having to learn also that there is no such thing as freedom without responsibilities and without boundaries. So we have to look at that one so that you understand the consequences of a choice to break through and cross boundaries. Your choices get pressured to break boundaries by peers whose acceptance of you value. Now, this acceptance we can translate into popularity. For the sake of popularity, you can be persuaded to break boundaries. But you must realize that there are unwritten rules to popularity. Rules that you take on if that's what you're chasing, popularity. Teenage culture has its rules as a guidance to how to achieve popularity. They're rules that won't automatically keep you safe, and they won't automatically prevent you from harming others. You'll find out too that the rules are different for girls and for boys. There are differences in the ways they are pressured to achieve their popularity, both within their own sex and also as they cross into transgender relationships. Which is what you're going to find out when you start conducting those transgender relationships of a close kind. There's some falling out of relationship because of these differences that aren't recognized and adapted to begin with. Sometimes young people engage in relational blackmail. They say, if you expect my friendship, then you will do such and such. Otherwise, I'll turn away from you, and you won't have my friendship. And I'll probably tell others too, so that you'll lose their friendship also. Now, breakups as a result of that can be very hurtful. Can you identify what is it that has the worst effect on your self-worth?
Girls.
Girls?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like when if you have bad relationships with girlfriends,
Yeah.
like it ends like in a bad way.
Right.
Just get real sad.
You get sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you talking about where a relationship doesn't work out and breaks down, or just the way the relationship is carried on?
Yeah, carried on and breaks down and stuff like that. If girls don't like you and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's a very, very bad experience. And one of the saddest things that can ever happen to a kid is they are treated in such a way that they don't have this experience of saying, they really accept me, they love me, I belong there with them. Now, you've talked about at a different level, further on, you enter into relationships with young people, with say, a girl peer, of yours. And it's very hard to take if a person that you start to trust and get fond of and allow to come close to you turns around and gives you the impression, the feeling, the experience that, well, I don't want to know you anymore. I've had enough. I'm off. I'm going to relate to somebody else, and I don't want to keep my relationship with you. Yeah? It's very hard to take, isn't it? Final question. What kind of experiences have troubled you the most and are the hardest to get over? What sort of experiences?
Breaking up with the missus. Oh, I used to, but not now.
Breaking up with?
Girls.
Oh yes, okay. Yeah. Let's get back to discussing those boundaries. They're set as a YOSHI boundary, a boundary inside yourself by your own value system. You have that ruling operating within you. Your own personal references to your choices and behavior. References, of course, that get squeezed by pressures for popularity. What you need to know, however, is that the really close, important, long-lasting, influential relationships of your life aren't going to be based on your popularity with others, but on your own YOSHI growth into becoming a good person. A person who operates on a good and right value system that isn't ignored if pressures build up. And you also mustn't overlook that apart from your own inward ruling value system, that you're living in a society that also has its value system on which it bases its laws. And those laws are usually designed to protect people from hurting themselves or others. Now, that's not a problem to you if you follow good rules of your own. But if your rules bring you into conflict with theirs, then you could find yourself on the wrong side of their boundaries. And you shouldn't try that, because you won't get away with it, and it can be very costly in terms of you being able to reach your goals. It isn't just a matter of what harm you can suffer at the hands of the law. I'm concerned that you may not be dealing with your power to harm yourself. Now, the law will come down hard on you if you get into alcohol and drugs beyond the legal limits, the legal boundaries. But what about the harm that you can do to yourself?
I reckon drugs, mate. Drugs are drugs are up here. It's pretty bad.
So that's a major issue around here.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, let's open up on that one, because there are various viewpoints about drugs, and one hears so much about adult viewpoints on drugs. What do you young people want to say about, from your viewpoint?
I reckon drugs and alcohol drugs and alcohol are the same thing pretty much. Annoying to see everyone doing it, just killing themselves off pretty much. It's a pretty stupid personally, I think. I've stopped it. I used to do it, but yeah, I tried to slow down, and it's pretty hard, but yeah, it's mint when you stop, you feel way better.
Yeah, I used to smoke weed, and I stopped now. I haven't done it in about 7 months. I feel pretty happy. Yeah, because I was getting a bad memory.
Right, so drugs definitely, you found it yourselves that drugs affects your brain. Yeah, your brain doesn't work as well. Okay, you're going to need your brain for a future, aren't you?
Yeah.
It may make them feel good at the time, but like when they're doing it, but they don't know that what it's doing to them, it will wreck their future, and they just can't get very fast, so just keep doing it.
Right.
Do drugs, and then you'll go down here, then you'll come back and you'll be about here, then you'll go drugs, and you'll go back to here, and
Yes.
you'll start getting dumber and dumber.
Yeah. It's a progressive thing, isn't it, Stanley?
Yeah.
It's
It
progressive.
takes about, a very long time to get real dumb.
Alcohol.
And drugs.
Okay. Drugs kills your brain cells.
Yes, and it's not very good.
And it's illegal. Oh, they made me do it
Yeah.
because it's not them who are like putting it in your mouth.
Yeah, in the long run, it's just like messing up your life.
And it's you who ends up paying
Yeah.
for it.
So you shouldn't kid yourself that drugs and alcohol don't affect your brain. They affect your brain and then, through your brain, affect your behavior. While you're under the influence of those drugs or alcohol, it wears off, you sober up, you come down from the trip. But does the brain recover from the cell damage that it has sustained? And if you become a chronic user, you will suffer chronic damage. The brain doesn't recover like it did at first. For example, just this week, I had a 20-year-old man talking to me and telling me how at the age of 12 he made a decision about his life and who he was going to live with that turned out to be a very wrong choice. And so, up until that time, he'd been a fast learner, recognized to be a pretty intelligent young fella. But at that age, he took up smoking dope. And only gave up after 7 years. Now he complains that he's living with the damage that those years have done to him. He's no longer a fast learner. He's a slow learner. He has difficulty learning. His brain doesn't work like it used to. There's also another side to these substance-induced highs, and that's the lows that you sink into after the binge or the trip, the depression. So you hit a low, and instead of doing something positive to change the situation you're in, you go for the substance again. And so you're on the slippery slope to addiction. Now, that's very easy to get into, but it's a very slow, long, hard haul to get back out of it. I'd like you to meet Wiramu, a friend of mine. We're rolling.
Kia ora ewa, ko Wiramu I rei ana taku ingo, ko Pariaka te marae, Punaki tere te awa, ko Ngāti Tautahi te iwi. Hello everybody, my name's Wiramu and I'm a recovering alcoholic. Just think I need to talk to you a bit about how drugs and alcohol affected my life. I can only remember back to when I was a kid, and my mum used to put me to sleep with a bit of alcohol in my drinking bottle, because that was the only way I could get to sleep. And as time grew on, I used to sit around the parties and sit on the crates and be the barman and open up the bottles and drink the ice cream off the top, and then take the empties back and drink the rest from there. And I guess that was part of my life. I know when I first got drunk, I was 6 years old, and I took a couple of bottles of beer to school, and I thought, well, this is my journey to being a man. And I took a couple of bottles to school and got drunk at 6 years old, and it wasn't a very good look. I got sent home and I got a horrible hiding from my dad, and I didn't really know what was going on there. I thought, well, this is part of life. Everybody around me is doing it. My aunties and uncles are doing it. Dad's doing it. Mum's doing it. What's wrong? As I grew older, I was a teenager, and I used to enjoy going to parties and spewing up and getting into fights and being a clown. Now that I look back at it, it was silly. All of those were about me wanting to be the I guess the man, the centre of attraction, wanting to be able to fit into a group, and wanting to be accepted, because I didn't really know how to talk to other people. Nobody taught me how to be friends, or how to become part of groups. All I knew was the way that my parents taught me, and this was the only way I could socialise. I was 14 when I started getting in trouble, and 14 when I first got my first girlfriend pregnant. And as soon as that happened, my life turned upside down. My grandparents wanted me to marry this woman, this girl, and I couldn't handle the pressure of that, so I ran away. I've been regretting that ever since that day. I've been using drugs and alcohol to cover up everything that I've done in my life. Not only the good things, but the bad things. Drugs and alcohol has been a big part of my life since I've been a teenager, and since that time when I first got my first girlfriend pregnant. I'm a father of 5 children to 3 different relationships. I've spent a maximum of 5 years in prison through alcohol-related offences, and I'm suffering from the effects of my alcohol addiction now through a broken relationship with my partner, where I beat her up consistently. I beat my kids up regularly, and now I live alone. I'm single. I think if anybody is going down the same path, that they need to have a look at themselves and look at what drugs and alcohol is actually doing for them. It actually, to me, if I had somebody like myself walking beside me at the time, I would have been able to make some decisions a lot quicker than what I have done. But then sometimes some people say that you're not ready to listen until you're ready to listen, and I sometimes have to sit back and wait for things to happen instead of me searching for those things to happen. I've lost lots of friends and family through my addiction, and they've spent a lot of time in prison. I've seen nothing else. I mean, I've expected that that's the norm for me and my family, and no doubt my nieces and nephews see the same thing within me. I'm hoping to change that and possibly look at some other options for me and for my family. Yeah, kia ora. emphasise how hard a journey it is to once you go down that track of using drugs and alcohol, and either getting in trouble with the law, either beating up people, either killing people through car accidents, through anger, through something that was out of my control. It's easy to go there, but it takes a long time to come out of there. And yeah, I can't emphasise that particular thing.
So please consider carefully that warning about a road to nowhere from someone who's been down that road and come back out of it. Now let's go back to depression. We've said that it can see you turning to substance abuse. Binge drinking, for instance, is both an abuse of the substance alcohol and an indication of a behaviour without boundaries. But a very serious outcome of depression is that it can cause you to think about harming yourself intentionally. There are various ways of doing that, and the ultimate self-harm, of course, is to take your own life. If you find yourself developing a depressed mind that starts thinking about harming yourself, you no longer have a well mind. You're slipping into mental ill health. Now do something to restore health. Don't do nothing. Go and consult someone who either can help you or at least get you to someone who can. Depression or any kind of mental and emotional distress resulting from some kind of crisis or breakdown of relationship is dangerous if you don't get help to get over it. On your worksheet for today, you'll find a note of where you could turn to get help. Now let's finish on a very positive note, switching from mental illness to mental health. You'll remember that in the opening of our program, we showed Yoshi coming into college with a rope that would accompany him through his college experience, because he was made up as a person from the strands of that rope. We've been talking about those strands ever since. Relationships, the blue strand; experience, the yellow strand; value system, the red one; and selfhood, the green one. The one really at the center of health. We need to point out that you will not only progress through college developing these strands, but you'll go out into your future with that full stranded rope as your lifeline, which is a rope for climbers, for goal-getters.
I'm Danielle Powell. I just come to climbing for fun.
And you enjoy it?
I enjoy it. It's
Yes.
good. It's great fun. It's like challenges that are totally up to yourself to make. You sort of decide on whether you want to take a wall and whether it's going to be the difficult way to do it or the easier way to do it.
The fact is that it's an individual challenge.
Yeah, and because otherwise you're sort of focusing. Your focus sort of determines your reality about where you get. So.
Have you ever fallen off?
Oh yeah.
But you're not going to be beaten, eh?
No,
you're going to go back
Yeah.
until you've got to the top of
Yes.
that challenge.
Yes. Yeah. It's like you've sort of not got to let one hindrance, one failure sort of stop you from achieving what you really, really want. And you sort of realise after doing it one way for so long, it's not going to work that way, so you've got to try a different way. And I think the whole thing of accomplishment sort of really comes from something that is taking you a while to get, and when you get to a stage where you know that it's just you and the wall, and you know that it's only you that can make yourself succeed. Now when you get to the top, you sort of realise, I did it, I've got there, it's me. I did it.